At the very beginning of Jesus' ministry, immediately following his baptism by John, the text says that Jesus was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward a hungred. And when the tempter came to him, he said, "If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread." What a time to tempt Christ. I don't know about you, but going 40 days without eating, you might be a little bit hungry as well. And now in this time of extreme weakness, the evil one pushes to test Jesus in a most visceral way. You can almost hear the evil one saying, "Come on, man, what are you doing? You don't have to starve out here in the desert. You who spoke the heavens and the earth into being, by speaking a simple word, the fruit tree sprung up out of the ground, and with a word caused manna to fall from the heavens. Are you going to allow yourself to die out here in the desert? Because you're going to starve to death." No, just say a word. Just speak, and these stones will be bread. Matthew 4 records the response. "But he answered and said, It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." You can almost hear the passion and determination in those words that Christ says. Man shall not live by bread alone. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. But why does Christ say those words? Of all the words that Christ chose to say, he spoke these words. Why? Did you catch that he is quoting the text? It is found in Deuteronomy chapter 8. The book of Deuteronomy is a sermon. In fact, it is Moses' final sermon to God's people, his last will and testament, as it were, his final chance to encourage, to give the final challenge. He has now led Israel for decades, and he was no young buck when he got started. He's led them out of Egypt, led them through the wilderness, led them through the ups and downs of the wilderness journey. He has personally witnessed the miracles of God, delivered the 10 Commandments, issued the law. Under the mighty hand of God, he has created a system of worship, governance, economics, and military organization that will long outlast him. It's a remarkable accomplishment. Now he's at the end of his life. He's not going to make it over the Jordan River. He won't be allowed to set foot in the Promised Land. What would you say if you were in Moses' position? Given one last chance to address God's people, what would be on your heart and mind? Moses says, "And you shall remember the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commands or not. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you with manna which you did not have, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord." Isn't it interesting that the first time that it said that man should not live by bread alone happens when somebody was in the desert being tested and hungry? If you compare the 40 days and nights of Jesus' testing in the desert with what the children of Israel had to endure in the desert, you will find that Christ's testing matched the testing of the children of Israel. Christ now is in the same desert and is faced with the same testing, but instead of grumbling and complaining, he quotes the very thing that Moses said was the lesson that the children of Israel learned in the desert. That man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. See, we have to realize that our life is not only dependent on physical nourishment that bread brings us, but also an awareness that we are not fully in control of our lives. We are completely sustained by God himself. As spiritual beings, we are fed by his words of life. We have to realize that our life comes from the words of God, his text. This video series is looking at the very commands of Christ and fully recognizes that if we live by these words, we will be fed manna from heaven and have eternal life. When we keep looking for other answers, other food, other nourishment, other substance, we will always come up empty. Christ says in John chapter 6, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me hath everlasting life. I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am that living bread which come down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever." I hope that we together can recognize that we are sustained completely by Jesus Christ and need to live our lives sustained by Him.